Hi guys, Avianca Business Class is back. Tonight I'm flying from London all the way to Miami via Bogota to experience the recently relaunched business class product. Let's see if this Star Alliance carrier has brought itself back to its glory days.
So I'd not flown Avianca for a few years, and certainly not on the 787, so I was curious how this post-COVID, post-restructure airline was going to fare. Avianca is well connected to Europe, with multiple flights from Madrid, Barcelona, Paris, and a daily flight from London. Starting in Heathrow's Terminal 2, however, everything seemed like a standard business class experience, with priority check-in, fast-track security, and as usual Star Alliance lounge offerings to select from. While the Air Canada lounge has now reopened, I opted for the Singapore Airlines lounge as it's one of the last to close, and the Avianca flight is one of the last to leave the terminal. While I've covered the lounge in detail many times, it was interesting to see how busy the lounge got at this time of night, thanks to all the late-night long-haul flights from Terminal 2 headed eastbound. There was enough time, however, to have a quick bite to eat, finish up some work for the day, and grab a glass of bubbles to set us up on our adventure. We headed to the gate for boarding and luckily didn't have to go far as the gate was directly opposite the lounge. Boarding was done by zone, although interestingly the zones weren't numbered but used letters. I was in boarding group A, which is for Gold Star Alliance and business class passengers, which boarded first. Being welcomed on board, I couldn't help but smile at the business casual look of the crew who wore a smart uniform paired with trainers. Avianca operates the 787-8, which has the smallest business class cabin of the Dreamliner type. On our aircraft there were just 5 rows of herringbone seats in a 1-2-1 configuration. First impressions was that this was a smart cabin, but definitely didn't have all the bells and whistles. That said, I loved the choice of fabrics, and the seats were clean and well looked after. Situated behind were 2 economy cabins featuring the airline's latest seats in the quilted black leather. It is certainly more impressive on a first glance and mirrors that of their narrow-body fleet, and more of that to come in a bit. On the seat, greeting every passenger, was a duvet set, which was already an impactful way for the airline to state that this is a full-service business class proposition. This saffron cirrus seat is a little bit more basic than most, with a fold-down armrest. It does, however, have a large single-leaf dining table, a range of seat controls, and power, albeit no USB-C on this particular seat. In front of every passenger is a fold-out TV screen, which has to be stowed for takeoff and landing, but I have to say I love the generous amount of space these seats provide. Prior to departure, the crew provided all the usual service elements I've come to expect from business class, with a range of pre-departure drinks, menus, and what is a nice touch, a feedback card for this brand new Insignia 2.0 service that has just been introduced. Now let's take a look at the menu. The menu on this outbound flight is great, but the menus on flights from Bogota are a little more impressive, with local chefs bringing some interesting flavours to the flight. Before takeoff, food and drink orders were taken, and just prior to pushback, we were delivered these gorgeous Insignia 2.0 amenity kits, which celebrated local artisans. Using recycled plastic bottles, these stunning kits all featured unique designs, brought to life by Molo Sasa and the women of the Gunaduli community. Inside are all the usual amenities, including hand cream by Loto del Sur. Now to the entertainment. Pretty basic headphones are paired by a pretty basic hand controller and a fairly old collection of movies and TV shows. If there is one main downside, it's the entertainment offering on board. Before we knew it, it was time to push back, have a short taxi, and then we were speeding our way to the Latin American continent once again. Being a night flight, I really appreciate a quick dinner service, and I wasn't disappointed. No sooner had we taken off, we were given hot towels. And by towels, I mean what appeared to be hot wet wipes. But where these tiny details might let down the service, there's plenty to boast about. And the dining experience was decent, which started with champagne poured at seat and a selection of nuts and seeds. This was followed by a delicious take on fish and chips. It was a roasted cod with a curry sauce. It was another example of the new Insignia branding on show too. I have to say, the team at Avianca have done a great job of rebranding their business class. The food was delicious, all coming on the same tray apart from the dessert, which was this delicious deconstructed lemon meringue pie, and I couldn't resist an ice cream to boot. After dinner, it was time to head to the toilet, which was basic, but clean and well looked after throughout the flight, and the mood lighting was a nice touch. When it was time to get some sleep, I reclined the seat into this 20-inch wide flatbed. And thanks to the airline's amazing bedding, it was easy to drift off to sleep and get some much-needed rest just 2 hours after taking off. With just 1 hour 45 minutes to run, I woke up before the cabin lights were slowly raised, with service beginning just 1 hour 30 minutes before landing, maximising the sleep on this 10-hour flight. I have to say the service on this flight was great. While not overly friendly in a forced way, it was professional, respectful, and there were smiles and laughs at all the right places. It was the perfect balance for a professional airline. The breakfast eggs were warm, tasty, and balanced well with a nice yogurt and granola dish. There was also fresh fruit and a bakery basket. Even though this was the equivalent of an early morning breakfast, in Bogota it was barely even 2 a.m. The cabin was prepared for landing shortly after breakfast, and before we knew it, thanks to the high altitude of Bogota, we were on the ground. And the doors were opened, allowing us to make our way for our connecting flight over to Miami. Although we had landed right next to our A320neo that was going to take us to the States, we had a bit of a walk to the security check before being allowed back airside. That said, it was well signposted and basically empty, meaning we were at the lounge in less than 10 minutes. We arrived so ahead of schedule that the lounge hadn't even opened, but after just a short 15-minute wait, we made our way to the Diamond Lounge, which is exclusively for Gold members and business class passengers, unlike Avianca's larger next door lounge. Now, this lounge hasn't changed much since I last visited, and it's not exactly anything to write home about. The interior is a little drab, in part due to the overhead airport lighting, but you won't have a problem finding a seat, and these secluded, quiet seats are a little haven for longer connections. The airline is trying, though, to make it more enjoyable, with live cooking stations, an array of buffet dining options, and some impressive fresh fruit, although we just opted for a coffee and watched the world go by. Before long, we headed to the gate, where we timed it perfectly to be some of the first aboard. Now, Avianca has done something relatively unique with its Airbus A320neo and its business class product. These seats, a little like British Airways, take the centre seat and turn it into a side table. But unlike BA, the airline have permanently installed it, allowing the seats to offer a wider seat pan, allowing the passenger to stretch out a little bit more. That said, these aren't the deep American first-class recliner seats that I had come to expect. The airline has also just started trialling a new braille system for passengers. It is nice to see the airline taking a more inclusive approach to interiors. Now, what we were impressed to see was the fact there were bedding kits on this short-haul flight. And to our surprise when we opened them, the set also included an amenity kit. Now, these bedding kits aren't as extensive as the long-haul versions, but come on, if you compare this to other airlines, this is where Avianca is surprisingly punching well above its weight. After boarding was complete, the head purser came around and introduced herself, speaking English to me, knowing from the passenger manifest a little about her passengers already. It's a nice touch. What was also nice was the bottle of water and yet another feedback form. Before we knew it, on time, we pushed back and the aircraft showed off its mood lighting, which was a little bit more impressive than the 787 from the previous flight. Once in the sky, service began and we were offered eggs or pancakes. Having just had eggs, I opted for the pancakes along with a Coke Zero, a coffee and a fresh orange juice. The food was pretty decent for a short-haul flight, and after service we had just enough time to watch the sunrise, relax and prepare for the long day ahead. As we descended into Miami, I was left reflecting on my experience. Avianca has come a long way, and my preconceptions about the carrier were quickly dispelled. Any shortfalls regarding in-flight entertainment and lounge were countered by great bedding, service, industry-standard dining and seat, and the ease of connecting in Bogota. I was coloured impressed by the new Insignia 2.0 service, and Avianca has come a long way since it emerged from Chapter 11. Have you flown Avianca recently? How did you find it? Please let me know in the comments below, and until next time, safe flying.